I want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet after hours for some that are listening. And for those that want to know what I mean via audio, go to our Rumble, go to YouTube, and check out the handsome men that I am staring at, Guy Goldstein, and of course, Golan Ramraz.
Shalom,
Guy,
shalom.
this is a true story. I met Golan in a WhatsApp group, and me and my friend, a friend of mine, were like, we loved his name, but I got to be honest, we thought his name was Golan Ramirez. and that's first. And we thought, wow, what a cool name. He's like his Latino Jew. And the second thing was his picture, he looked like he was an extra out of like Delta Force. And I wasn't going to tell him that part, either of them, for the first, you don't tell somebody, hey, your profile picture, you look like an extra out of a 1986 movie, one of my favorites. And so finally I told him, and he ended up changing the picture. So that's how that's the goal on
Backstory, although you could do worse than being an extra in Delta Force.
Like, why wouldn't you change that picture? Delta Force was
Judah instructed me. Judah instructed me to change that picture.
Yeah, I say, listen, my point was he's a really handsome, he's a good looking guy, and he looks like the extra. I didn't say he looked like one of the main cast of the Delta Force. He looked like
was more people in the Delta Force than Chuck Norris.
Yeah, Chuck Norris, and it was just that theme music, that dun, 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 dun. Yeah. Anyways, I'm tone deaf, but it was just an incredible movie. So whoever's listening, check out Delta Force, 1986. Chuck Norris, one of the best casts. It was Golan Globus, and they put together all the actors like Martin Balsam, George Kennedy. Just an incredible Joey Bishop. Just like this the late great. God, I'm blanking on his name. The Golan from Jackie Brown, Robert Forster. Okay, let's get to real stuff. Let's get to real news. And I want to bring up something that nobody is bringing up, and it's really weird. So obviously Trump, we don't know what he's doing, obviously, with Iran. Almost everybody I speak to believes an attack is inevitable. But the interesting thing that nobody has brought up, Golan, no reporter has asked this question. And it's after the Ayatollah made a promise that they wouldn't execute people. They didn't say they wouldn't kill them, just not execute or hang them. Nobody's asked for proof of life.
The Ayatollahs are known for being trustworthy negotiating partners.
Yeah. But with Golan, don't you find that weird?
It is a bizarre thing, but also I think that, and I hate to say it quite this way, Trump made a big statement. He made a promise that if they continued to kill the protesters, he was going to step in, he was going to do something about it, and it made a red line. So I think that he has a reason to believe. I think that when they're like, oh, yeah, no, he's like, great. Hey, everybody, I have it on good authority. They're going to stop killing everybody. And that way I don't have to do anything about that red line because he hasn't yet. Now, it doesn't mean he's not going to. And I'm not saying that he pushed out or anything like that. But right now, he's putting out to the viewers who are waiting for him to fulfill the promise of that premise, or the premise of that promise, rather, and he hasn't done so. Reason why I don't need to. I told them that if they kept killing people, I was going to, and then they said they would stop. So we're all good, and then now we'll see what I'll do from here. So I do think it's weird, but I also think that he's using it as a tool.
No, why I disagree with you, which I almost never do, is because, Guy, you had Obama come out today and say he wishes he would have backed the protest in time. Mm-hmm. Trump is without a doubt somebody that we all consider Ben Shapiro was talking about this yesterday. I was actually really shocked to hear him say it with as much passion as he did, because I've written about this, that Trump is the best foreign policy president easily of our lifetime, easily, hands down, of our lifetime. And I'm almost 50, so that's Reagan included. So I don't think Trump wants this stain on his legacy. By any means. This isn't really going on.
What does that have to do with what I just said?
Because you're thinking, my point is that I believe an attack is imminent. I do believe there will be an attack.
I want to clarify that. I want to clarify because you've misunderstood me. I'm not saying he's not going to. I'm saying right now, the American people heard him say, if you kill protesters, I'm coming after you. Then they killed a bunch of protesters and he didn't come after them yet. So at the moment, he needs everyone to chill and then let him make a decision. I'm not saying what he's going to do next. I'm saying that for the moment, he needs everyone to recognize that he's justified in not doing the attack yet.
Well, I could tell you one thing that brings me no justification. So that's just me personally. I think we all three could agree with that. But Guy, don't you find it strange that not one reporter has asked for proof of life for that kid that was going to be that was going to be executed? Don't you find it? Now we're getting reports that they're using chemical weapons on people over there. So don't you find it just a bit bizarre that nobody's actually asking that? And I get it. The excuse is going to be people are going to say, "Well, there's no internet, right? We're not able to see it." But just to even ask the question.
So first of all, I wish I could say I found it bizarre, but that's par for the course for journalism today. Nobody's asking. Nobody even asked Trump why he believes the ayatollahs. They didn't even get as far as asking for proof of life because they don't care.
Great point.
Also, the reports of coming out of Iran aren't just that there's still no internet. There's that the Iranians have made a decision to remove Iran from the global internet and to set up an internal sort of Chinese style, North Korean style, you don't get to escape our tyrannical dictatorship internet. And nobody's saying nobody's raising that people who have decided that they're going to reform and stop killing the protesters don't usually disconnect their country from global communication. Yeah, I wish I could say that it was bizarre that the journalists weren't journalism, but that's what they do now. And even
But
when it comes
isn't
to
it weird to you, Guy? Isn't it weird to you that Trump made a statement? He said, Iran canceled the hanging of over 800 people, and I greatly respect the fact that they canceled. That's a quote. And nobody was like,
Yes.
how do you know? Forget whether they're journalists or not journalists, but that's just a statement you would go like, what do you mean? Who told you that? Just asking the question with curiosity.
If the job of journalism was up to ask questions and to get to find information, then yes. If what they were really if journalists felt that it was important to somehow avoid America getting involved, again, the motivation for this comes from both the left and the right for different reasons. On the right, you've got a lot of people who want to avoid a foreign adventure. On the right, you want to avoid regime change. On the left, they want to keep their favorite Islamo-fascists.
But on the left, they also want to do gotcha moments with Trump. And that's a great
that's
gotcha
exactly
moment.
right.
There's an order of priority.
Guy, just give me 1 second. Guy, to Golan's point is you have all these leftist talk shows that have not brought up what both of you, what the proof of life thing, and then even saying, how can you trust the Ayatollah? I mean, listen, they go after Trump endlessly, whatever that word is.
Mercilessly.
It's late at night in Los Angeles. Thank you. And Guy, you would think that this would be an attack point, and they're not.
So the way I look at this is that they're not just attacking Trump. They try to achieve something by attacking Trump. And in a lot of cases, if you've got the kind of activist journalism that usually would go after Trump, they don't want a war. They don't want a war because they think the Ayatollah should stay, not because they don't want America involved in another war. But nonetheless, you get to that same point of if they attack Trump on this, it makes what they don't want more likely. And so
well, you're giving them a lot of credit for thinking that far ahead.
Well, I just think that they have ideological motivation. It's ideological motivation that's not just pure hatred. I think one of the interesting things that we've seen, particularly in the last 6 months, is an evolution of the way the media go after Trump, where they haven't been nearly as deranged as they were in Trump 1, for example. They try to catch him on better gotchas. They give a little bit more play to the places where he is doing things that are not counterproductive to their mission. It's not been the same as the first term, and I think that that's a strategic evolution. It's not that they've changed their position.
Final word, go on.
I guess I feel like I appreciate what you're saying, Guy, but I feel like you're giving everyone a lot of credit, more credit than they deserve, and not because you're wrong, but because they've proven that they don't deserve that kind of credit. So look, we'll see what happens, but the fact
listen, go on. There's a first time for everything on this show, and this is the first time I disagree with Guy. So we could just
you disagreed with me and with Guy. Maybe that should be the name of the show.
Yeah, but you both have great beards.
Three Jews disagree.
We both have great beards, and I'm trying to, just so everybody knows, I'm trying to convince both of them to open up a barber shop that only gives haircuts below the nose. So that would be really, I think that would be
It's a new
a great
career.
business,
I like the idea.
especially in Israel.
A good name too.
Yeah, below the beard,
Below the nose.
below the nose. Okay, I want to move on a little bit though to something I talk about oftentimes is messaging. And a lot of people like that post I posted on True Social. Follow us all on True Social at Guy Goldstein, and of course at Film Artist. But where it's not knocking the White House. It's just saying you can do a lot better. And I think they could do a lot better in messaging on a lot of things. But the one thing, Golan, I'm noticing, especially with the ICE stuff, where we're all massively in favor is, and even Tom Homan said this. Listen, Tom Homan is not the ICE messenger. Tom Homan's like the guy that's doing the job. He's like the badass you want doing it because everybody's scared to death of him. But even he's mellowed out a little bit. You know what I mean? He even realizes. But then you have Kristi Noem, who is not very palatable. Aside from it's hard to get past certain whatever, she's not doing a great job. And I started thinking about it before the show about her book, right? She wanted to be vice president, and she put in her book the whole story about having to put Cricket down. Cricket, the 14-month-old dog. And now I remember when I posted this on Truth, people are like, well, you don't understand farms. And I'm like, you're right. I don't understand farms. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I live in Los Angeles, and I have an Australian Shepherd that I love. Okay. I go get him groomed every 6 weeks, give him yogurt every day now. Thanks from a tip from somebody on True Social. He's lost 8 pounds and he's the love of my life, Golan. But when you read her excerpts from that book about how she put that dog down, okay, it's very reminiscent of how she talks in these ICE press conferences. And you have to have a yin and a yang. Coleman is a yang. You can't have two yangs. Okay, you need the yin and the yang. You need somebody getting in front of the camera with a little bit more empathy. A little bit. Just a little bit. You can't even have any mistakes. You can't say everybody could be carded in the United States. Just certain things you have to be. And I'm thinking she's the person in her book. Because who in God's name would write in a book about killing Cricket, their dog? There's nothing that would make anybody walk away and say, that's our gal, go on.
Yeah, look.
I mean, maybe like future serial killers, okay?
But it's interesting because you're talking about empathy. So I want to turn the question around on you for a moment. I don't always get to hear Judah's. I hear Judah's questions, but I don't always hear Judah's opinions. But when you say empathy when it comes to ICE, what would you want the messaging to be from her?
You know what, go on? You know what the messaging is sometimes? This sucks. Joe Biden let 21 million people into our country. We have we have some of the worst, we have sleeper cells in this country. We have Venezuelan murderers from El Salvador, from every other country. I want to protect American citizens. I want to make sure there are no more Laken Rileys. So if sometimes people get caught in the crosshairs accidentally, yeah, that happens. But we have like a 99.9% success rate with what we're doing. I'm here to protect the American citizen. That is my job. That's what I'm doing. When you hear something like that, that's much more palatable for me. Is that helpful?
I think that's fair. Look, one of the main issues that I've had with the messaging, and we've talked about messaging a lot on the show, obviously, but one of the main issues that I've had with messaging on other topics is when there is a failure to do something, or when it seems like a failure. Something hasn't happened yet. The economy hasn't totally turned around yet. Things like that. Eggs are still the same price, whatever it is. Instead of owning, they say, well, it's because of Biden. And it might be true, but it seems like they're passing the buck. Here, there's success, and they can say, we inherited this chaos. If we had inherited a clean slate, you wouldn't be seeing this. I think your messaging is actually right on. Nobody wants mass ICE operations. We're only doing this because Biden blew the doors open.
And because sanctuary cities refuse to cooperate with ICE.
Well,
That's
and
why we have
I
this
think
going on.
to your point about Noam specifically, she tends to be, as you mentioned in the book, but also we've seen her speak 1,000 times now. She tends to be cold and procedural, which does not connect with anybody, as opposed to talking about how this is painful but necessary. And I think that it allows us to also point to the failures of the previous administration, but also it allows us to talk about the policies that exist today that make this even more of a problem. That thing that keeps coming up that I think they haven't really nailed the messaging on either is if you arrest someone who is illegal, we can come into the prison calmly, carefully, take that one guy out, right? But you, because you're a sanctuary city, you let him out of the prison, let him go to the mass population. And now we have to do a raid and a bunch of other people get caught up in the dragnet too. That's your fault, not ours. There are policies that you have that make this more difficult, that make problems more probable, and that make things like what happened in Minnesota, where people are now going to go block these places where the illegal we could have taken very easily before. Now, suddenly you're putting complications in the process. And I think that's a very good message.
Yeah, I mean, Guy, it's to the point. It's exactly 100% the truth. And then people could say to her, "What you can't argue." Listen, Essence is a perfect example. I think I was doing the World According to Ben Stein last night, and Peter Roth was on, great writer, and we were both talking about how much we love Scott Bessent. Scott
Mhm.
Bessent, who is not the most, I don't even want to call him charismatic. He's
Uh-huh.
just straight to the point. He
Mhm.
talks about the tariffs, how they're working. Everything's working. You're going to see your money soon. This economy is going to turn around. He doesn't really talk about so much about what he inherited. He doesn't go there necessarily, but he's
Mhm.
straight to the point. In this case, Guy, this is obviously, we knew this was going to be a problem. If you know, you should have known beforehand that it's not a problem for us. Just for the record, for everybody listening to the show, I don't care. But when President Trump comes out and says Renee Good, I'm sure she was probably a good woman. You know that he gets, even
Mhm.
President Trump gets, not a good thing to say. She was a rotten dog that needed to be hunted down.
Right. And I guess that there's a couple of layers to this. So first of all, it's important to understand that particularly with someone who talks to a conservative audience, when you choose a female spokesperson, we expect certain things, right? That's why the lack of empathy is so confronting.
Yeah,
Like
good.
if it was Tom Homan speaking that way, we'd be like, okay,
Right.
this guy's
He's like
serious.
Lee Marvin in Delta Force. It's a go.
Right.
Take him down.
Right. And so there is a certain expectation that comes with who Kristi Noem is, and it's missing, and that the gap is much larger because of the fact that you're like, okay, well, she sounds like someone's country mom, but no, she talks like she's a cold-blooded killer, and that's how did that just happen? So that's part of it. I think the other thing is, Scott Bessent to a degree has a really easy job when it comes to being cold about what he does because he talks about cold, hard cash. He talks about a topic that has no warmth to it.
Yeah, but it's more than that, Guy. I don't think he's got media training, which I think really helps him out a lot. He's not a media trained person. And you're right, he's talking about money and stuff, but there's something very human even when he speaks about this
Right.
stuff. You're not walking away from it going, Scott Bessent's lying to me. He's not telling me the truth, whatever it is.
Mhm.
There's something very and I'm not the only one. Everybody loves Scott Bessent.
Completely agree. But what I'm saying is for Scott Bessent, it's easy because he has to have empathy to one side of his equation. And he's very good at conveying empathy to American families. Like when you hear him talking, you feel like this guy's telling me that the economy is going to be okay, that I'm going to be okay. Kristi Noem has a tough job. Whoever takes Kristi's job or whoever is in that position has a tough job
Well, it
because
will
on the
be
one
somebody
hand,
else.
you have to express empathy to the American people who it's your job to protect. And on the other hand, the way that you protect them is by you know, by kicking people out of the country, cutting them off from the American dream, if you will. Like it is a painful job. And so it requires someone with an excess of empathy to express what the nature of it, because you have to show this isn't about, we're not trying to dehumanize illegal immigrants. We're not trying to make it penalize. We're not trying to harm. We're just trying to correct.
You
And
know what?
that's
This is
not
a great
always going to be
point.
clean.
Guy, this is a great point because remember she was dressing up like she was one of the soldiers and she was like
Yeah.
cosplaying. I think the more she leans into that hard-edged image, the more she actually feeds the left's caricature
Right.
of ICE as some militarized cruelty or something like that. And it reminds me, many years ago, someone told me, well, this is when I was in the Army, they said, and my job was to be really tough and to, make people, listen to me and all of that. And they said, despite the fact you have to be tough, you want to be respected. You don't want to be feared, because fear is conditional. If someone stops being afraid of you, they stop listening. But if they respect you, it doesn't matter what level you're coming at, they're going to listen. Fear is a terrible substitute for credibility. And she's desperate, it feels like anyway. She's desperate to be feared. It's the same thing she did in her book. I hated that dog and I'm going to kill that dog. Like, it wasn't like,
I mean,
I can't believe
right.
I
It was,
did this,
Guy, I'm like thinking to myself, the only other person I could think that would like get up there and talk like her would be like Ann Coulter, a former friend. And it's like, like I always used to joke, Ann Coulter turned on Trump in, 2018 or 16, whenever she did really quickly with Drudge, because she thought she would be driving the bus, deporting, the criminals herself. I mean, that was like her dream job. And, but again, she's a columnist. Kristi Noem is on camera. There's a difference between doing what we're doing, opinion. There's all different forms of media, Guy. And she is really failing. And again, all of us agree, just for the people listening, we all agree that every illegal should be kicked out of this country. Okay. This is not we're not here sympathizing at all with the illegals. We're just simply saying you could message it a little better.
But you know what? And I'm gonna make 2 points. But first of all, I think what we are doing is empathizing with the illegals. I think even if we don't think that they belong in the United States, we understand that they're human beings and they don't deserve to also be treated like they're not, right? And so it's a tough needle to thread, but it needs to be threaded. And again, as you were saying before, when you have cities with policies that make it more difficult, it doesn't just make it harder for ICE. It makes it worse for the illegals. It makes it worse for people who, in a world, if they understood that this was a systematic procedural thing and you could announce that, listen, it's all well and good. We understand that you're in here. We don't want to harm anyone. We don't want violence in the streets, and we don't want anything to be uncomfortable. On this and this day, on such and such a day, you can report to this place and we'll figure out what to do. You'll get your asylum hearing in a whatever. Have a rapid fire process where people know that they don't have where to hide.
Now,
and it
have
would be
a
a very
rapid,
different
Guy,
world.
the rapid response would be to who you just arrested, because this is where I'll disagree a little bit with you. I'm not as lovey-dovey with a lot of these, as Trump would say, bad hombres that we've allowed into this country.
Wait a second.
So,
I gotta stop you, Judah, because that's not what Guy was saying. What Guy was saying, well,
sorry.
he's not talking about the bad guys, okay? The people who are committing crimes and all of that, that's a different story. But we can also recognize that, and you can tell me if this is too much of a statement, but I feel like Biden lured millions of people into the United States under false promises and then abandoned them.
He groomed them into the United States.
Yes.
Right. They were invited in by bad policy, right? And if they
That's
were
a great
invited in by
post.
bad policy,
Biden was an illegal immigrant groomer.
Yeah.
Right.
That's beautifully phrased. See, talk about messaging. There you go.
And to that point, though, again, the bad hombres, the criminals, there's no need for empathy for them. I have no pity for them. If you're illegally in the country and you're committing crimes, get them on a plane, get them on a plane, get them on a bus, or throw them into the sea. I don't care.
I'll put Indian Ocean.
Right. But let's say that in the average population, that's about 5% of the population. The rest of the people who are also there illegally, that's the people I'm saying. You can have empathy for them without thinking that you also need to let their rights supersede the rights of American citizens. And that's where I think that's where the challenge comes from, having both
you're
the
right. It's a
left-wing
very hard
perspective
needle
that
to
everything
thread.
is empathy, and the right-wing perspective that everything is system.
You're right. You're completely right. It's a very hard.
And I think one of the other challenges that you have in messaging, and I saw a clip of Carolyn Levitt yesterday or today that really threw me off, because she's usually exceptional. And she asked the journalist why they think that the tragic death of Good happened. And the
I
journalist
saw
started to
this.
answer her.
This is interesting.
And she went for his throat. That's because you're a leftist activist. You're not a real journalist. Now, in Trump 1, that was that was sort of the relationship. The adversarial relationship was that aggressive. Trump 2 has been really much
Cleaner.
more moderate, cleaner. And I
Refined.
feel right. And I feel as though, having been trapped in a bubble for a long time, or in an echo chamber for a long time, people have gotten used to the attitude where they're talking to a very specific audience, and they've forgotten about the other half of the audience. They're playing to the clicks from their people who follow them, as opposed to understanding the responsibility of the role that they're in. And so messaging comes out really warped. And Trump, as you were saying before, understands that his audience is the whole world, and more first and foremost, all Americans, and then the whole world. And so he does make concessions to the other side to try to be able to say, listen, I hear you, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but I am saying I'm right.
But there's also a big difference, and you're raising a good point, which is also Trump could say things. And this is where other people get into trouble, is when they think they're Trump. Now, I've often said, follow Trump's lead, but that doesn't mean follow Trump's speech. Okay. There's a big difference that I've said to conservatives. It's like he's the fullback that's like blocking the way for everybody. Get on board, go with the flow, but you don't have to mimic him, because there's only one. And when you mimic Trump, it doesn't come off well.
By the way, that takes you back to our favorite comparison, your favorite comparison, which is that's exactly the difference between JD Vance and Marco Rubio.
Save that for, we're not there yet. We're not there just yet.
Okay.
Final thoughts on this subject. Kristi Noem, shelf life. I feel like, what's his name? Who was that host from? Who was it? John McLaughlin from the McLaughlin group, who would go like, final thoughts on, oh my God. And I feel so bad for young people that they do not get to watch a show like John McLaughlin. That guy was, when you think about it, how blessed we were, to see people like Tom Snyder, the McLaughlin Group, Crossfire, even the Beltway Boys on Fox News with like Mort Kondracki. They were like 80 years old. And I can't blanking on the name of the other guy. They were like, and they called themselves the Beltway Boys. And, we were really blessed to grow up in a time where like there was like awesomeness, the McLaughlin Group on, what people miss too, guys? I got to be honest. I don't know if this still, it was. And it also, like, I remember, Sunday morning TV, and I'm a Jew. There was nothing better for me than sometimes watching those evangelical shows, or Benny Hinn calling people up to the stage and hitting them in the head and saying, "You're saved. You can walk now. You're healed." And
I grew up untouched by an angel.
Yeah. Wait, I want to say one more thing before you move on. No, you asked me for one final thought. I'm going to give you my final thought. I'm just going to speak to the Caroline Levitt thing. One of my favorite movies that is wildly underrated is a movie called A Civil Action. Whether you like the movie or not, you can't deny Robert Duvall's performance in it is unbelievable. And he has a line in it.
He's good in anything.
That movie, I think, as always, for that thing. He plays the older lawyer who seems like he's a schlub, but is the smartest guy in the room. And what he says is, he goes a whole speech. He's like, if you fall asleep, the first thing you say when you wake up is objection thing. And then he says to his class, and one last thing, if you don't know what the answer is going to be, never ask a witness why, ever. And the reason why is because then you're not anticipating, what you can't be three chess moves ahead, because you're not anticipating what could happen unless you know for sure what's coming. When when Caroline Levitt said to that reporter, "What is your opinion as to why?" She was opening a door she didn't need to open. She controls that room. And the fact that she allowed someone to then do that in order to try to admonish them made her look bad, and it made her look unprofessional. It's one of the first times I can say that.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to defend Caroline Levitt and say everybody has a bad day. If that was her worst day, God bless her. We don't, you don't always know what people are going through on that day. I mean, she's a mother, right? She's a mother, right? A young mother. You don't know what people are going through that day, what's going on in their lives. And sometimes it could take a little bit to trigger people off. She's been exceptional 99.9% of the time. So I'm willing to excuse this flub. So let's not even put her in the Kristi Noem category.
No, so okay. And by
Dog
the way,
will hunting.
this is not a broad criticism of Carolyn Levitt. It was just specifically on the subject
No,
of
no, no. I
messaging.
know. But that's where like somebody really taught me that lesson a long time ago. And it's funny oftentimes when you're given like great life lessons, the people you're giving them by don't follow their own things they say. And, I'll never forget it, but it was like something, and I encourage this, to everybody that's listening, you never know what somebody's you never know what somebody's going through on a day. They might, their wife might be going through chemo. They might have, whatever sicknesses. Don't always just judge them on that one moment. If we're all judged on that one moment, we're screwed. And I know, Guy, you're not judging her on that one moment. I'm just simply saying it's like we have to have, so who the hell knows what meetings she came out of? And let's be honest, not the easiest job in the world. Okay, I want to move on though to the point you brought up, Guy. And I know you weren't attacking her, by the way, at all. I know you're a huge fan. We're all huge Carolyn Levitt fans.
Very big fan.
But here's the thing: all of us want is for conservatives to win. That's all of us want. So we're just trying to add tips of how they can win, right?
Personally, I want America and the West to win, and I'm okay with whoever's going to win it as long as people are having healthy conversations and doing things the right way. I think. Sorry, just a quick clarification. I think conservatives win by America winning, and I think conservatives need to have a sane opposition, the same as Democrats need to have a sane, or progressives need it. And that balance is the thing that keeps the ship on keel.
Yeah, but I hate to tell you this because you brought this. I hate to bring this up. I hate to say this because it's so interesting that you're both in Israel. And I just want people to understand this. It's very interesting. In Israel, right, it's a parliamentary system. But for the most part, for a long time, it was sort of a parliamentary system because you had two massive parties, right? You had Labor and you had Likud, right? And, Labor no longer exists. And I often look at Democrats, they no longer exist. They are the left. There is no more Democrat Party in the United States of America. It's Democrat in name only. You might as well call them the left or whatever fringe groups they have within their own block of that sort of parliamentary system. But don't kid yourselves. A party could leave. I mean, look at MAGA, right? That sort of is the new Republican Party. But I really want to move on, though, to because I want to get your opinions on this. Golan did not want me to name the show this tonight because he thought it sounded negative. So he did not want me to name the show. Marco Rubio will never be the vice president. Is that how I said it?
That's how you said it.
That is how you said it.
And I thought it was sort of a little cutesy Golan because I get a lot of flack.
It was adorable. You are like a basket full of bunnies, but I don't know if everybody thinks about stuff as much as you hope they will. And I think that there is a chance that it could be seen if just on the flash response as negative. So I like where we ended up going.
But the bigger point, Golan, is that he was appointed another position today. on the what is it of peace? What is it being called? The
board of
peace. He's on the board of peace. And the whole point is, with every position this guy has, he can't become vice president. I mean, you don't go from Secretary of State, in every job he has, to then go, yeah, I'll be a running mate.
He's also sort of become the de facto vice president. No one's saying it out loud. Trump for some time now has been sort of bringing Rubio to the important meetings and sending Vance on sort of ridiculous missions to get him out of the room. It reminds me a lot of. Did you ever see Veep, the sitcom with the?
I didn't watch it.
I watched every episode of it.
It was a fantastic show, except that it's really.
I can't believe you didn't watch it, Judo. You of all people.
You should watch it.
You really should watch it. Antonio
will enjoy it.
Iannucci might be a leftist, but if you watch his film, which was Oscar nominated for screenplay, and you watch Veep, you will not be able to help but
Yeah.
just fall in love with the
And
show.
there was the
You just gave me deja vu when I was this is years ago, sitting in Greenblatt's, sitting with my friend Ashley Hamilton, and this guy looks at me and he said, it was like, what was that movie, My Left Ear or something?
My Left Foot.
What was it? My Left Foot, right? And this guy looks at me and he goes, Judy, you must have loved My Left Foot, right? And I'm like, he looked at me and I was like, why? Why would I want to go watch a movie called My Left Foot? And he looked at me and he goes, I really thought more of you, Judah.
I
And
love
I
how
was
you
like,
just have this natural aversion to anything with left in it.
yeah, no, but yeah,
Left.
that's
I'm gonna say a left foot. Give me a right foot.
that's hysterical. And
That's very funny.
but I remember him saying to me, just, I thought more of you, Judah. And I said to him, why? But anyways, go on.
So Veep was a very funny show, but one of the running themes was the sort of president who was largely off camera was constantly trying to send Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, the vice president, off to sort of so that she'd be out of the way because he didn't like her. And so there's a similarity when like, all right, Vance, go to Greenland, do something.
Well, it reminds me of the Ben Kingsley character from Dave. Remember when
Yeah,
suddenly the vice
fantastic
president
movie.
shows up? He's been gone for a long time. Suddenly he's standing there with a traditional spear and Bushman mask because he's been sent to some ceremony. It's
Yeah,
brilliant.
and Ben Stein was in it, so it had to be great.
Correct. Yes.
Right. But that's it. So it seems like Rubio has sort of taken the place of de facto VP anyway, and he's not going to. Yeah, he's acting like someone who is going to have a more important job than vice president.
Yeah,
I mean, the
and
guy is
well
on the board
said.
of peace. He's running foreign policy lanes. He's handling diplomacy. He's doing national security. He's doing sanctions. He's doing alliances. And the joke about him, I was listening to some podcast. I don't remember who it was, but they were pointing out that the online memes about Rubio is that he's in the world, and the online memes about JD Vance is that he's a fat guy with weird hair. And right now, at least from the online perspective, Rubio is killing it. And in real life, he's killing it too. So it's hard to look at it any other way.
Yeah, but Golan, also, it's interesting, again, going with the Trump thing, listen, somebody brought this up and they said, I like it. This had a lot to do with the ICE thing, right? They loved JD Vance's messaging on ICE, but they couldn't get past that it was JD Vance giving the messaging on ICE. And, like last week, he was extremely strong. He came out, he was great, but they couldn't get past that it was him. And the reason I bring that up is because obviously the European leaders don't want him in Munich in 2026. Now, it's great for the reasons they don't want him, because he's so anti what Europe has become. I love that part about JD Vance. Love it. But you're not Trump. You can't piss these people. You're not Donald Trump. If you're that person, I get what he's doing. Love it. Love that the Europeans don't want him. Props to JD for pissing them off that they don't want to invite him. But again, you're not Trump. You can't speak like
what's
Trump.
interesting is someone was talking about, I think it was Ben Shapiro a while back, was talking about how with Trump, already that he's half showman. So you have to take everything he says with a grain of salt, see what his actions are. And sometimes when he speaks, you have to go, okay, this is the showman part. And so people are conditioned to listen to, when he goes vitriolic, to listen to him and go like, okay, it's Trump. But if you are JD Vance, who speaks in a very measured way and is known as the erudite debater and all of that, and you start doing that, people then take you very seriously, which is why you're pissing people off, as opposed to people going like, oh, that Vance. It doesn't work if you're not Trump. Trump is a one-of-one.
But by the way, it also has to do with Trump's ability to people to read a room. So note that the two things that he's let
That's
Vance
a big
take
thing.
the
You're
lead
right.
on-
Before you go, that's a big thing that people say is the ability to read the room, and he doesn't have the ability to read the room.
Right. And the other thing is, note that the two things that we're bringing up that they've given the 2.5, we'll call it 2.5 because Greenland isn't a real thing. But the messaging on ICE and telling Europe to man up, both of those things were conversations that there was no way to win. And so the sensible decision in terms of winning that conversation was sending someone else to go have it. And so Donald Trump, who usually is the spokesman for himself because no one else can get a word in edgewise, was like, these two important conversations, off you go, JD. You go have the conversations that are going to make you unpopular. I don't like having conversations that are going to make me unpopular. I like winning, right? There's a very strategic sort of decision-making process behind that. Of if it's a no-win situation, don't send the commander-in-chief. And I think that that's a testament to Donald Trump's acumen when it comes to messaging and
But he
strategy.
also did send Rubio to make sure that probably war wasn't started as Vance was doing
Send the babysitter.
negotiations.
But I'm saying, having sent someone to make sure that Vance didn't drive it off the edge of the cliff, the fact that he actually chose essentially to put Vance in charge of those no-win situations doesn't just speak to Vance's inability to manage that situation to at least minimize the losses, but it also speaks to Trump's acumen, understanding that there are some situations that you can't win, and we don't want, and those are situations that, what is it? Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's the saying.
And it's just something
for good
people don't
reason.
usually think about when they talk about him.
Well said. Go
I
on,
think it's well
final
said.
thoughts.
I think it's well said. I just want to know, what did you mean by Greenland isn't a real thing? I just want to know what that meant.
The fact that they sent Vance to go lead a conversation with Greenland, nobody's really negotiating Greenland. They just want
you
people
mean
talking about
that particular meeting?
Yeah, no, there is really
Absolutely
a Greenland.
agree with you
It's
on
on the
that.
map. It's not green and it's smaller than it looks, or it's bigger than it looks. I don't remember which one it is. It's bigger than it looks, I think. But
Okay, I did just.
but it
sure.
exists.
Let me ask you guys a question because I just saw this story. Did they do this again? Oh no, never mind. It says Secret Service is aware of Iran state TV. You know with the Butler and Trump
No,
assassination thing.
they did. They mentioned it again. They referenced it again. They did. They mentioned the Butler attempt, and they said it's the "we won't miss next time" concept, but they specified that it's Butler now. So this is a re-up of the threat.
Okay, and I'm glad the Secret Service is aware of it. But I want to move on though to one more thing because maybe a couple more things, but one more thing for sure is I haven't watched the Joe Rogan podcast in for those of the people that are tuning into this daily cheat sheet, everybody on this that does this show, we work on projects on the side, some that make money, some that we do just because we love helping out. We love our country and we just love what we do. And we love that we get to do it too. And so, both Guy and Golan and the dude who will be back on Monday do some of the most amazing charitable work imaginable. And they don't talk about it, but I could attest that they do.
Guy
and
as well, by the way. Guy is.
I said Guy. I said Guy.
Oh, you did say Guy. Yeah. Okay.
What do you?
I'm double
I
emphasizing.
I said Guy and Golan. I didn't say Golan and Guy.
I thought you said this guy. All right, now I understand. Continue.
No, both of you do just really just amazing work outside of the show, outside. And again, you both have great beards, both of you. Okay. But I haven't listened to Rogan in probably ages, and I'm working on a different project, God willing, and so I was like trying to listen to other podcast formats and stuff like that. So I put on Rogan for a second, and it was with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and I like Matt Damon a lot. And 24 minutes in, I had to turn it off because I was so bored at 24 minutes in. It had nothing to do with politics. It was just so boring. But there was an interesting clip from the show where Matt Damon talked about cancel culture and the never forgetting of cancel culture. And he was really a very great take on it, where he said, it'd be much better if you could do like 18 months in prison, then your slate's clean. And of course, Amanda Knox, the broad that, from Italy, right, that got off from killing, supposedly, I mean, I guess she was innocent, but the Italian courts still don't think she's innocent, if I'm not mistaken. And she commented on that, like, you try it. But Golan, I thought it was such a profound thing that he said, and I agree with him 100%, for so many people that have been tarred and feathered and canceled and everything like that, it dies with you. It's a sickness, and it would be so much better if you could go to jail for 18 months, especially in the day of the internet where nothing leaves. People have been canceled for some of the worst things in the world. And again, we're
Well,
like
it's
one
like
of those shows
you
that
you
never.
do your time and then you get to walk away clean. And look, Matt knows what he's talking about. I've known Matt a long time. He's as I regularly tell my wife, there's like three people I liked in Hollywood, especially actors, and now one of them is off the list. So basically two, and Matt's one of them. And he's not only a very smart and curious guy, he's someone who is empathetic. He's someone who really listens. He asks wonderful questions. He's just a good person. And he's one of the people that they have tried to cancel more than almost any other. And people don't even realize it. Maybe it's because I know him, so I pay extra attention to it. But
No, I
they,
remembered what you were talking about with the race thing after you brought it up.
do you remember the gay slur thing? So this reminded me of Liam Neeson. Is he gave an interview and he talked about how he was talking to, he's from Boston, he's a street guy, and he used to say things were gay when he didn't like them, the old slur, right? And so he was talking to his daughter, and he said his daughter explained why it mattered, and he stopped using it. And the idea was, I've grown. And they were like, you used to say a thing that literally everybody used to say before it was something that was no longer said.
It also
Now,
wasn't a slur.
what's that?
Just to be clear, it wasn't a slur. It was a description. It was a
That's
description of the
correct.
thing
That's
that you were
correct.
calling
But
gay.
that's how
It
they
wasn't a
interpret
commentary
it.
on gay people.
Right. But that's how they interpreted it. And it had nothing to do with homosexuality at all. It was literally just a cultural slang. But they tried to cancel him like crazy. And it took so long for him to shake that anti-LGBT cheek-that-poopadoodle thing for a very, very long time. And then he was on a TV show called Project Greenlight, in which he said something about diversity. He was like, hey, the best person should get the job. We shouldn't do it just because. And what he was saying was clearly like it makes sense. And one of the other people on the show was this black woman who I've also known for quite some time. And she went after him for A, mansplaining, and B, being a racist. It was just white savior accusation. Like it's nonstop with him. And he's even been accused of things that other people that he's friends with did. And he said, the fact that you're still friends with them, he got accused of defending Harvey Weinstein. Like they've come after him so many times for a guy who literally like takes his mom to the Oscars. So for him to say it actually has some weight behind it. And he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right that this is the kind of thing, and I talk about this a lot too, is those who apologize get destroyed. And those who are like, I don't even miss of your accusation is ridiculous, I'm just going to ignore it. Those people survive. And that's what Matt's been able to do because he doesn't take it seriously, except it does weigh on you, even when you don't.
For the record, Golan, the reason they keep coming after him is because he's a good person. You have the same thing with, what's his name, from Star-Lord.
Chris Pratt.
The fact that they are good people, and the fact that they are good people is really challenging. You can't, in a narrative where all white men are bad, you cannot have a good white man. And so the more they are decent human beings, the more the people that oppose the idea of the group they represent have to find a way to take them down. And they will lean on increasingly ridiculous things because if they can just find that one thing that works, they've proven that their worldview is valid. So
and
it's
they're
not a
really,
coincidence that they keep coming after it.
And they're going after good people because I think it kind of amplifies how much they want to police that speech. Be careful. Don't think independently. Don't speak honestly. Grovel to the machine. Because if these guys can't escape, you are not as good as them, and you certainly won't.
And because people who have things to hide tend to capitulate. So the bad people will just go, I agree with you. Don't look at me. I'm just part of the mob. Like, I'm just one of you. The good people, the good people who don't have a reason, who actually have a value-based reason to disagree and don't have something, a skeleton in the closet that they know that someone's looking for. So that there's an irony in this, which is, that's also the reason Benjamin Netanyahu is keeps refusing to just take a plea. It's the reason Donald Trump lawfare doesn't work on Donald Trump, and neither of these people are perfect, but both of these people clearly their skeletons are already out of the closet, and so they say you've got nothing to find. You can't get me, and I can stand up to you, and that makes people want them even more.
Well said, both of you. I like, for the people listening to audio, somebody in the rant said, our charitable work is talking to the people in the rants. So David, that was a great line. And Turbo, you're on fire tonight too. So, I mean, listen, I think that sort of covers a lot. I actually had a lot of fun doing this episode with you guys. Guy woke up really early in the morning, and apparently it takes a lot to wake Guy up, as I've been informed 5 times. It keeps a lot to keep you up, and to wake you up is something I've learned
I
in the
work
last.
late into the night. I usually work late into the night so that I cover US hours, because that's when the interesting news happens. And so
Yeah.
mornings are not my thing.
So the last thing I want to ask both of you, since I trust your opinion on this, is obviously we are loading up in the Middle East with every bit of machinery that some of the best machinery we have, if not to prevent strike backs, what do you think it's meant for?
It's a hard question. It's well, for starters, we've been juggling 3 theaters that we did for the last few years, right? There's the Ukraine, the Middle East, and Taiwan. And America, for the most part, has been preparing itself for war with China, trying to take Taiwan. There's been a lot of strategic adjustment around that, particularly in the last year. And I think now it looks as though there's a perception that there's going to be an escalation in the Middle East, whether they like it or not. And we would prefer to like the way that it escalates than not. It's hard to believe. On the one hand, it's hard to believe that we would move around the amount of resources we're moving around with the urgency we're moving them around willy-nilly. On the other hand, it's worth remembering that when October 7th happened, the US response was to move around an extreme amount of firepower in order to try to prevent an escalation. So it's probably something in the middle. It's probably something like, we're going to control the way this escalates. There is a deterrent value to bringing back a carrier fleet and bringing back a whole bunch of global strike capability. But I also have a sense that President Trump is more likely than President Biden to actually pull the trigger if America gets challenged.
Yeah, especially Golan. I think if listen, the second they turn on that internet, I mean, there was chanting on the streets. I don't know if you saw the video of them chanting on the streets, death to the Ayatollah, death to the Khomeini, because if they walk out of their houses, they will be shot. I would almost encourage us to figure out a way to turn the internet back on in that country. That would be a pretty awesome thing if we could. Again, I think the parachuting of the the Shah's son is calling for mass protests. I think it's what did he say? January 17th and 18th. He wants mass protests again in the streets, and they seem to be really on his side. So I really
internet
pray
off,
for these people.
we're not seeing what's happening on the ground. Guy and I both actually have been on and off, when possible, speaking to people that are actively involved in this. By all accounts, again, I don't have physical proof of this. It's just what I've been told. But the protests are not subsiding. They're bigger than they ever were. Again, this is the information that I've received. And despite everything that's going on, despite all the kidnappings, despite all the executions, et cetera, and I think we have to be aware that despite the fact that right now, verbally, people are talking about how we're de-escalating and we're not doing executions and the protests are coming down and all of that, it seems to not be going in that direction. And realistically speaking, from a military perspective, fewer assets in the Middle East limit rapid response options. It's as simple as that. And if things blow up in Tehran, if the internet does go on, or if we get information that it's go for whatever reason, or if they initiate, we have to be prepared for that. So redirecting the carriers, as Guy pointed out, or other forces into the CENTCOM region. It's not random. It's deterrence in action. And I think we're just prepared for whatever it is. What are they calling it? Operation Rough Rider, I think it was, or the previous one, I mean. Similar kind of situation. They put their assets in
Matt
place.
Damon?
No, I thought it was Rough Rider, but I might be wrong about that. Don't quote me on the name of the operation, but they put their assets in place. This is what happening when the Red Sea was. They put their assets in place. It was first and foremost deterrence, as Guy pointed out, and eventually it was connection. And I think we have to be prepared for that sort of thing here too.
Okay, perfectly said. And Guy, I love the head of the Mossad being in Florida right now. How do you pronounce his name? Barnea?
JD Vance.
Barnea. He looks just badass when you look at him. I mean, he looks like a guy you don't want to mess with. And
he's much scarier than he looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you know, and I sometimes often think, I got to be honest, and I just thought of this because as I was looking at him, you know, like I'm an American-made Jew, and you know, my heroes were the gangsters. You know, it's like there's something I think that really isn't palatable. This is the third time I've used that word tonight. I will not use that word after this show. That really, and we've discussed this, it's not very palatable to people that Jews that are tough. And it really, it's a very scary thing to them when they hear of the Mossad, think of the Mossad, that they you know, that, and you know, and that's the point really of an organization like the Mossad. That's the point of certain Israeli forces that are, you know, like from the show Fauda, and there are much other forces like, you know, that are even greater than Fauda. But, you know, I don't think Americans or the West could often wrap their minds around these tough guys. It's very intimidating.
And I'm sure he's there with a very good reason and bringing generally speaking, when JD Vance goes places, he comes to bring useful information. And yeah, it's hard for people to wrap their heads around tough Jews, but tough Jews are what we have to be these days. It's a new world. This is what we learnt to be. Israelis are very good at it. The Sephardic Jews, the Mizrahi Jews, the brown Jews, if you will, went through a lot of things as well and brought a lot of lessons about having a very stiff jaw and a very tough demeanor.
Yeah.
And we've had to learn. Vis-a-vis Iran, by the way, I think one of the things that it's important to take away is, regardless of the protest, I don't think I think that the size of the protest is no longer the issue. What we have seen now is a revolutionary movement take shape. It has a leader. It has a call to action. And I think one of the things that, I know I've been drilling this home all week, but I really want to make it clear, is we are past the point of conversation about regime change. The only question now is, do we support a revolution in the name of freedom, or do we shirk away from our responsibility as the OG revolution in the name of freedom? Right? This is no longer about a regime change. We are not imposing on the Iranian people, but they have asked loudly and clearly and with the blood of their patriots for help in pursuing freedom. And that's the question that we should be asking, particularly as American patriots.
This is what I was going to say is
in my case.
But this is what I was going to say too, is for all the America First people or America Only people, part of the conversation is about having a safe world. And when you have people who are willing to sacrifice it, they have asking for this kind of action, this is something that only benefits America. And it's something to remember.
Well said. And you know, I just want to end it with this because I brought this up on The World According to Ben Stein last night. There's a fantastic movie out there called Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, right? Because the Covenant was taken, so they had to name it Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. Yeah. You know, with Jake Gyllenhaal, and it's a fantastic movie. It's about, you know, how badly we left Kabul and Afghanistan, and we left the interpreters there to just be slaughtered and everything. And there's a great line in the movie, you know, where he said, you know, it's like a debt. You know, he was indebted to the person that said it was a debt. And he's like, we pay our debts. And I don't know, I'm just paraphrasing the line, butchering it. But so watch the movie. But go on. I feel like after Trump came out and said, help is on the way, the debt we got, that's a debt. You know, we got to pay that debt. And Mark Levin had a brilliant piece out. He was on Hannity talking about it being a concentration camp, you know, really a concentration camp in Iran right now. And not the open air concentration camps that jackasses were calling Gaza, but an actual concentration camp run by a guy akin to a Hitler that would kill 6 million people in Iran like nothing, like nothing. And we do have a debt sometimes. We do. And
a moral obligation as America. Like, I think one
Douglas
of
Murray
the
finally wrote a column about it. So there you are, guys.
look, and I'm not an advocate for war, right? And I
This
think it's
isn't about
important to
war.
say that.
Yeah.
This is it. But America has a place in the moral universe, which is the modern world. It stands for something. It needs to stand for something. We need it to stand for something. It can't just be a country that goes in whatever direction. You know, it's a set of values and principles and a framework for understanding what humanity can be. We went through a period where we kind of thought that maybe we can just change what it stands for. And I think one of the keystones of conservative thinking, particularly American conservative thinking, is to understand that standing for something sometimes means having to make hard decisions and sometimes means having to do things that are uncomfortable to do. And that's why you don't hate the dog and put it down. You love the dog and have to put it down. That's why you don't hate the illegal immigrants. You do need to restore order and the order in your country. It's why you don't want to go to war, but some wars need to be fought. And I think that is a fundamental aspect of American conservatism that says this is a country that stands for something. This is a country that knows the value of that something. And this is a country that will fight and bleed for that something if that something is at risk.
And I'm just going to
is the
throw
biggest
in.
threat to the world today, more so than the CCP, by the way. Despite the fact that the CCP is broadly a bigger threat to America, Iran is a bigger threat to human freedom.
And I want to say one thing before you wrap up, you're about to do, which is, as a former speechwriter myself, nowhere on the level of Ben Stein, but as a former speechwriter myself, what Guy just did was a beautiful way to bring all of our themes back together to wrap up the show. Thank you, Guy. That was wonderful.
You know, you didn't have to say that because I was going to say that was poetically put and we could just end the show right now. What a better way to end with Guy Goldstein summing up it beautifully. And what I love about it more than anything is Guy's Australian originally. That's how much he loves America. That his views and shapes of America views and ideas of America come from an Australian and believing in American exceptionalism. That's so cool. That's so cool. That means we did something right to get Guy on our side. Whether it was the movies he watched, the books he read, whoever got to you, Guy, did an amazing job. And I love how much you love America. I love it. I absolutely love it. And the three of us all love America. Doesn't mean we don't love Australia. It doesn't mean we don't love it. Doesn't mean we don't love Israel. It doesn't mean we don't love Iran. You're allowed to. We're not monogamous in our love. You know, but those are our other wives. This is the main wife for us, especially for me in America. So on that note, I want to thank you both. I want to thank the guys in the rants and everybody in the rants and the rumbles and the people that have been following and listening. And hope we're brought you a little sense of humor tonight with some seriousness and some levity. I just couldn't bypass the beard thing. So on that note, I thank everybody. I want to remind everybody you can find us at thedailycheatsheet.com. That's thedailycheatsheet.com. I want to wish everybody good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.